Well, welcome back to the Critics Corner. I'm still Andrew Branca with the Waxahachie Sun. I'm here with Mr. David Dunn with Southlake Style Magazine, and we have got a treat for you today. Normally, we do the latest action movie or drama or sci-fi or romance or even kids movies, but we're doing something a little bit different today. We are looking at a brand new documentary that came out a few weeks ago on Amazon Prime. It's called Val.
Hi, my name's Val.
I don't do this with every interview I go on. Take you inside my home. I don't. But I'm going to.
My name is Val Kilmer. I'm an actor. I've lived a magical life. And I've captured quite a bit of it.
Push the button.
I was the first guy I knew to own a video camera.
Here we are, filming ourselves.
Is that a video
rolling, yeah.
Oh, that's really cool, Val.
I have thousands of hours of videotapes and film reels that I've shot throughout my life and career.
Shut the video camera off.
I will keep it on until we're rehearsing.
Oh, Val.
I was recently diagnosed with throat cancer. I'm still recovering, and it is difficult to talk and to be understood. But I want to tell my story more than ever.
I spent decades finding my voice
I was a perfectly normal person.
through characters,
I give you about 4 takes with some different voices.
through movies.
One of the things they buy for all that money, your life for a period of time.
I have behaved poorly.
More wine, more rum, more women.
I have behaved bravely. Bizarrely to some.
How do you heal a broken heart?
I see myself as a sensitive, intelligent human being, but with the soul of a clown.
I've tried to hear the world. I don't want to survive.
It's a story about my life. That is also not my life.
It talks about the life of well-known actor Val Kilmer. So, if you can fill us in here on what this documentary is about, that would be great, Dave.
Yes, sir. So, as you already mentioned, the documentary Val is a film chronicling the whole life and career of Val Kilmer. Many people know Val from movies such as The Doors, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, The Saint, Tombstone. A lot of different movies, a lot of breadth of roles, and a little more infamously Top Gun as well. But yeah, it's a pretty straightforward documentary, and it chronicles his whole life from being a kid, making home videos with his brothers. Their recreation of Jaws was freaking brilliant. To him older, kind of past his film career, he dealt with throat cancer and now has a voice box to kind of help him speak. And the film is narrated by his son, Jack, since Val Kilmer can't speak so clearly anymore. Going into Val, I had no idea what to expect, Andy. I wouldn't say I was the biggest Val Kilmer fan growing up. I did love him quite a bit in Top Gun. I actually appreciated his performance in Batman Forever. I know it's not his most well-known role, but I enjoyed him in it. And Heat, I thought he was great in Heat as well. But he doesn't really, originally, he didn't really strike me as the kind of guy that you would want to see a documentary on. Like, going into this, I was like, okay, I'm curious to see documentaries on actors like, my favorites, Tom Hanks, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Tom Cruise, maybe Michael Caine even, there's several actors I've wanted to see documentaries on in the past. I'm like, why are we getting a Val Kilmer documentary before we're getting a documentary on any of those? And you quickly realize within like even the first few minutes of this movie, it's not really a documentary about Val Kilmer. I mean, it is, obviously. It's about his life. It's about his family. It's about his personal experiences. But on a much larger scale, the film is about creating. It's about creating performances. It's about creating characters. It's about creating stories. It's about creating illusions through which these people can portray truths through. And I thought that was very profound. I thought that was very interesting that through his own story, Val was able to tell a pretty universal truth, not just about Val Kilmer, but really about any actor to kind of fill his shoes. There was one part of the movie where a much younger Val was speaking to the camera, and he was kind of iterating, saying, oh, whenever you're involved on a film production, you know, the Indians used to believe that when you took a photograph, the photograph took a piece of your soul with it. I feel like movies do that throughout the duration of their shoots. I'm like, that is actually a very profound thought and not something you think about very often. And you kind of see that even ripple through Val Kilmer's life, whether it's relating to his marriages, his finances, his health, his kids. It's interesting to think about Hollywood being a machine, movies being the commodities, and actors are just, you know, the tools, the process to get these movies out of them. Like, I've never thought of that before, how dehumanizing that can be for some performers.
Yeah, definitely. I've always admired Val Kilmer and the work he's done. I mean, one of his later movies that I really came to enjoy was Deja Vu with him and Denzel Washington. I always thought that was a really good film. I always thought he was kind of a quirky, oddball actor, but he could always do really a great job. I mean, his performance in The Saint, him as Jim Morrison in The Doors, Tombstone. I mean, he's just done so many iconic movies, and kind of getting to see who he really is and how an illness like cancer has affected his life and how that's impacted him. But while for some people that might just be a game changer, as in, I'm done, I'm over, he doesn't really see it that way in a respect. But you can tell that it has affected him. Over the years, I've gone to Comic-Con a number of times. I've, sat through the Q&As with actors. I've gotten autographs, photos. It's a fun thing for fans to do, but you don't realize how that can kind of be, I guess, difficult for an actor to go through if you don't have that kind of a support system. If you're he kind of mentioned it himself, where he's doing a kind of a Q&A session, and they're showing Tombstone at Tombstone, Arizona, and he mentions that he feels like he's selling part of his old life just to make ends meet. And that was deep. It just stuck with me, that you don't realize what these people are going through. We kind of treat them as, in some respects, almost kind of like a commodity, where what can they do for us? You're supposed to entertain me, so make me laugh, tell me a joke. You don't see that aspect about him. And what I thought was interesting is how the personal relationships he's had in his life, one with his father, who didn't really seem to be a really great person, who basically cheated him out of a lot of money through bad financial deals with property. The loss of his brother who was 15 when he passed away of a seizure. the failed marriages he's had, the relationship with his kids. It just shows another level how that's really impacted who he is. And I thought that was great.
Yeah, it's rare to see the veil pulled down, right? Like we look at actors, we look at the Tom Cruises, the Chadwick Bosemans, the Robert Downey Jr.'s, just all these big name actors of whatever time period they're in, and we never really get the veil pulled down. Like we see their names like in headlights. In movie trailers and, getting top billing in movies. And we think they're like these larger than life people. But then here comes along Val and he reminds you, no, I'm a person. I have a family. I had a childhood. I have dreams, hopes, aspirations, all these things. It's hard to see that through the lens of, a movie camera, which is ironic. It's supposed to be the most truthful device out there. And here it is just kind of painting pictures of illusions, as this movie kind of says. I think it was very interesting. One thing that I thought was very, very powerful about this movie, Andy, was really how much Val committed himself to his craft, which I always knew he was a good actor, right? I always enjoyed him as an actor. I thought he was a very good performer. I think he did a really good job in the roles he did. But I never appreciated him at the same level as I would, like, say, Daniel Day-Lewis. This movie kind of sheds a light on, no, he actually took his craft very, very seriously. Early in his acting days, whenever he was studying at Juilliard, he, would rehearse the same line of dialogue over and over and over again. And you realize these different takes, how he gives it with a little bit of different inflections in the voice, different expressions, different ways of saying it, different ways of communicating it. And it's just very interesting that to see him play all that out and just be very meticulous with each way he does it. I find that very, very interesting at how much he cared about acting, how much he cared about performing, how much he cared about the art of storytelling. Which, as I went on to watch this movie, I was just like, why isn't he at the same level of a household name, like, say, Tom Cruise? Why isn't he like a Tom Hanks or a Robert De Niro or Al Pacino or Kevin Bacon or any of these very, very, very highly popular actors? I feel, and you can speak up if you disagree, I feel like it's because he just simply hasn't been given as many opportunities as them. Obviously, he was a standout in movies like Saint, Tombstone, The Doors, and all of that. But like, there's one part of the movie where he gets the opportunity to star in a movie alongside Marlon Brando.
That one of Dr. Moreau, yeah.
Yeah. And it just shows you how miserable the experience is on set. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, you're working with The Godfather. You should be having an amazing time right now. But because you're being handled by a very clueless director that's clearly not passionate about the project and just wants to kind of just rush through everything, the experience is lesser now because of it. I find that so sad, getting a chance to work with one of your idols and it just being a lesser experience than Top Gun of all movies, because of the guy behind the camera. That's just a sad thought. And I don't know. It makes you think about, like, I don't know, what could have happened with Val Kilmer if he had gotten these other roles. Because this movie shows he obviously auditioned for movies like Goodfellas. He auditioned for Oliver Stone. He auditioned for Platoon, a whole bunch of movies. And you look at this and you're like, I wonder what would have happened if he had gotten in those movies instead of some of the other actors. Like, how would his career have been different,
And I'm not trying to say this to be funny, but I think there's a good parallel to his career. And you look at a guy like Nicolas Cage, for example. Nick Cage has done some really, really good bodies of work. but he's also done movies that are popular, that people enjoy, popcorn movies, but he's also done a lot of dogs. He's done a lot of bad movies. And the same can be said for Val Kilmer. His career has been definitely kind of a roller coaster of highs and lows. And it just makes you wonder, because I've seen him in some great roles. And if he would have gotten more of an opportunity, it makes you wonder, like you said, if he would have been given a part in Platoon, what that would have been. I think that would have been a game changer for not only that movie, but, his career as well.
The most sad thing I saw in the movie, and there's several somber moments in here, but the most heartbreaking thing is I saw his best performance in the movie, Andy. I saw his career-defining performance, his career-defining character in Mark Twain. He played Mark Twain during a series of one-man shows, and really he was in his element. Like, he was playing a character he really cared about. He was touching on subjects that were very, very important to him. He was in a stand-up kind of improvisational setting, much more intimate, much more raw, much more visceral than even many of the movies he's done. And he just breathed life to the character in a way I've never seen before. And I'm watching this thinking, why have we never gotten a Mark Twain movie starring Val Kilmer? Because then he gets the cancer diagnosis and that derails everything. It really reminds you how volatile, how short life is, and how you really got to live up to it in every single moment you can. But god dang, this movie just it makes you feel all the emotions, man. For Val Kilmer, for movies as a whole, for people as a whole, it's just I'm so amazed that the filmmakers told such a complex, such a raw, such a funny, such a heartfelt, such a real story in Val Kilmer. I don't say this as disrespect to him, but out of all of the actors Hollywood's ever produced, Val Kilmer isn't the guy I would expect to get a movie like this or a story like this out of. But we have it. It's here, and it's freaking beautiful, man. I was amazed by every second of it.
I totally agree. And one of the parts that struck me is when he's talking about when he got the role of Batman and how just horrible it was for him to, be in the bat suit and just being among people, but being in a crowded room, but being alone at the same time, and how people would just talk over you or talk around you, and just how he said, every boy wants to be Batman growing up, but nobody wants to play Batman in the movies. I'm like, that's true.
I thought that was so profound as well. And yeah, it's like, he even said in the movie, he's like, who wouldn't take leap on the chance to be Batman? That's a really good reason not to want to play Batman, because for him, at least, he wasn't so much giving a performance like Tommy Lee Jones or Jim Carrey was. The way he says, he's kind of like a prop, no more than the cowl on Batman's face or the cape around his back. Granted, I still think Val Kilmer was really good in the movie. Eon's better than George Clooney for sure.
Oh yeah.
But it is sad to, see that and think you come up on this dream you've had your whole life, and it's just not what you expect, and it doesn't deliver as the special experience you were hoping it would. That feeds further into Hollywood's kind of commodity type mentality, how it just it seeks to consume and produce, and it doesn't really care who it hurts in the process. It's just it's such a somber feeling.
Yeah, it definitely it definitely had that feeling to it, that after he got cancer, Hollywood was just like, okay, we've gotten all we've gotten out of Val Kilmer. Let's move to the next schmuck in line here and use him up, and then we'll just find somebody else to, fill that spot. And
yeah, literally. Like the last movie I even remember seeing Val Kilmer in, and I don't know if you've seen one after me, but The Snowman. The Snowman starring Michael Fassbender. How is that his last role? So I don't know. I find it very intimate, very raw, very real, very powerful. It's amazing to see one person's life play out on the screen like this. And to that credit, I not only give the filmmakers, Ting Pu and Leo Scott, credit. I not only give credit to the editors, the production company, A24. I not only give credit to all of them for bringing the story to life, but really Val Kilmer as well. Because if he wasn't willing to share this story, if he wasn't willing to write it, if he wasn't willing to film it, if he wasn't willing to share all of this footage throughout his whole life, it would have been nowhere near as special as it's come to be.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can kind of relate in a smaller portion of putting something very personal out there. I've written about several personal moments in my life with readers. I wasn't expecting to write it, but I felt overly compelled to share it in order to help somebody. This documentary that he wrote and produced and put together definitely had that feeling and vibe to it that he doesn't want pity. He doesn't want you to feel bad for him, but he's just wanting to tell his story in a way that it might help somebody else, maybe make their lives a little bit better, or, learn from the mistakes he's made in his life. But also the one thing I also take away from this movie is that he's not sad about where he's been or where he's going. He's still productive. He's still doing things. He has like an actor's workshop in California, or in where I believe Arizona, where he lives.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still giving back. He's still contributing to make his world just a little bit better for people, and I think that's awesome.
He's very grateful for what he has, which I think is another profound point in this movie, is that even if you didn't win an Oscar, or even if you didn't, win like whatever big Hollywood award or whatever, if you weren't number one at the box office, or if you weren't the highest grossing actor of all time, or whatever, he still made something of his life. He still did something with it that was profound, important, and impactful, and vital, not just to these art communities, not just to these fans, but even to his own family. Like, there's a lesson to be had there about not being where you want to be in life, but still finding the happiness, still finding the joy, still finding the fulfillment in what your life does have. I think that's also a very, very important lesson that a lot of people need to know as well.
Yeah, and that's shown through the relationships that he has with his kids, Jack and Mercedes, in this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
It shows that, he's still a vital part of their life, and that he still has a lot to give and teach them, which I think is great.
And that's another thing I love. Like, if this was like a fictional movie, I would say, oh, Val Kilmer's performance was great. Oh, Jack Kilmer's performance was great. Oh, Mercedes' performance was great. I would say all that, but it's a documentary. They're not performing. They're living, and that brings a smile even more on my face. Like, it's not for the camera. It's who they are. I don't know. I love so many things about this movie. Just its honesty, its realness, its authenticity. This is a very, very special film. I not only see this being one of my favorite films this year, I think there's a very real possibility it might end up being one of my favorite films this decade. Well, obviously, decade's very early, but a very early contender for sure.
Definitely. Let's cut to the chase here. What do you give this out of 10?
Easily 10. And it's rare that I give documentaries, especially a 10, because 10 level documentaries are so far and few in between. But like I said, I don't view Val so much as a documentary. I view it as a life. And holy crow, if you can say nothing else about Val Kilmer has had a heck of a life at the very least, for sure.
Oh, definitely. No, I agree. I give this a 10 as well. And he focuses on his life, what's happened to him, and he's still trying to help others. And there's not a political undertone or anything like that to this. He's not trying to make a statement about something. He's not trying to schlep for a cause or anything else. He's just, this is my life. This is how I'm doing. This is what I'm doing now. And if you can take something from it and learn from it, that's great.
Yeah, and that's what I would say is that, yeah, he doesn't have a political message. He doesn't have like a vendetta. He doesn't have like an agenda, but he does have a purpose. He does have passion. He does have a deep, deep love, not just for performing, not just for art, but for life. And he wanted to share that with the world. And I think that's just very, very moving.
I agree. And that's going to do it for today's edition of the Critics Corner. So if you have any thoughts, suggestions, comments, or anything else, email us or leave us a suggestion in the comment section on our Facebook page, and we'll be glad to get back with you. So we'll see you guys back next week.
See y'all next week.